Use the Force, Luke.
Live long and prosper.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Shut up and take my money.
I grab Thar's hammer. What a saving.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
X never, ever marks the spot.
Winter is coming. You're a wizard, Harry.
Stay a while and listen.
Hey, old Kermit the Frog here.
Your ties are cool.
So say we all.
This is a Play on Nerds.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, boys, and girls of all ages, to a Play on Nerds episode 201. I'm one of the co-hosts, Steve.
And
this
I'm
other
the
guy
other
is
one, Jarman, who interrupts.
and we're here to co-host the hell out of this. It's okay. Sometime in the 400s, we'll figure out the handoff there.
Absolutely. 10 more years.
Yeah. But this week, in honor of what I would say is the summer's most anticipated film, Deadpool and Wolverine, we're here to talk about a movie featuring a different duo. Two people from different worlds joined together to right wrongs and bring justice into this world. And of course, I'm talking about Cop and a Half with Burt Reynolds.
What else would we be talking about?
I can't imagine another movie I'd be talking about.
Oh, and I'm so pissed because I was going to always buy tickets to these Marvel movies in advance and just realized today that I'm going to be out of town when it comes out. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm going to get so spoiled for what happens in this movie. I'm screwed.
I mean, they probably are going to have it in other towns.
Yeah, but we'll be on with her mom on a trip. And I don't know. We might not get to see it. We'll see.
Nah, dude, you just get your ass up early one morning and go.
That's not a bad thought.
For that first showing.
Earliest showing, yeah.
That's right. But yeah, Cop and a Half, something from my childhood that I saw in theaters with my dad. I can confirm.
Oh, nice.
I remember. And we're going to talk more about that later. But before that, Jarman, what have you been up to since the last time we chatted?
Whew, baby. It's been one of my busiest times in work in my life beyond home stuff. Just working constantly on books, which is great. I'm getting booked constantly, booked with books. But my most recent one I was very excited about because I found out I'm getting paired with these different female narrators. These romance books, you typically read the male parts and the female narrator reads the female chapters. And I keep looking up the female narrators, see what else they've done. And this most recent one, she was the one who did the audiobook for The Queen's Gambit, which I thought was really cool.
Whoa.
She's a big time narrator. She's done hundreds of books, and also found out one of her pseudonyms, which she does romance under, is one of the books that Jolie just read for part of her Book of the Month Club, like a really popular romance book. And so I'm like, oh crap, I'm kind of playing with some big fish now. So like, it's getting exciting, but keeping up the schedule has been nuts. So it's been a lot.
Dude, up the game.
Yeah, I got to up the game. I haven't barely left the house, so it's a lot.
Shake hands. Get business cards.
Yeah, if I ever left the house, I
Peabody
would.
Award winner Jarman Day.
That's right.
You have to get those cards. I'm not kidding you.
Let's just say that on there. It's it.
Dude, it's all you have to say. Like, Peabody Award winner Jarman Day.
It'd be a privilege to work with me.
And then your website and the word like voice actor and performer. That's
Peabody
it.
Award winner.
Peabody Award winner.
But that's all I've been up to, literally, is working nonstop. So what have you been doing, Steve? Hopefully something more fun.
No, I've been working a lot. I've got a vacation coming up, so I just have kind of like a stretch of days, though I was lucky enough to get 2 days off for the holiday. Tomorrow being the day we're recording, July 4th.
Right.
Independence Day here in the U.S. And so then I'm on for 2 days, but then I'm off for 8.
Ooh,
because
nice.
Anna's mom is coming to town. But our big goal before she got here was to get Joyce into her own room. Oh, so we have a
older daughter
room. Yeah. A pass-through room that was sort of advertised as the third bedroom, but it's small. And we've been using it kind of as a closet while the kids shared a room. And we just kind of got to the point with Joyce where we said, okay, it's time. So we had to paint and we had to weather seal the door to the attic so that not every ounce of cool air leaks out of that room. We had to figure out shelving for her. I had to put up a rod. We had to adjust the molding. It was all real good. It was all real good.
Lots of work.
But now, as of yesterday afternoon, she has moved in. She is sleeping in there for the second time tonight. Big win.
She's very excited.
Oh, yeah. She's stoked.
Nice. Privacy.
Yeah. So even though it is small, it is private.
That is great.
The trade-off we gave her was she could keep the bigger room that her and Dilly now share, but it would have to continue to function as the playroom.
Mm-hmm.
So she could have it, but she would need to allow Dilly in there to play and stuff. Or she could have the small room, but have it to herself.
Hey, that's more valuable.
She went small room to herself. Yeah.
You give her an option, though. That's good.
Yeah. We wanted to give her choices.
Makes sense. Well, that's exciting. It's a big step.
Yeah, it's a big step. My kid's growing up, but getting all that work done sort of filled the cracks of the week, so to speak.
Yes. Any free time you would have had.
Right.
But you still watched Cop and a Half somehow.
I did. I really had to slam it in.
It was rough.
Yeah. But I think before we get to Cop and a Half, we've got to cover some nerd news.
That's right.
It's time for Nerdy News.
So I'm calling this one in Clockwork Orange for real. And this comes from Paul Seaburn over at Mysterious Universe. In a mesh of science fiction, artificial intelligence, neural implants, and criminal rehabilitation, molecular biologist Hashem Al-Ghalili proposes a treatment called Cognify, in which prisons would use AI headsets to implant synthetic memories of a crime into the brain of a criminal that show the crime from the victim's perspective. And he believes the memories plus a brain implant to induce emotional states like remorse or regret, which make the criminal feel pain and suffering of their victims. He thinks this treatment will work for criminals who commit domestic violence, hate crimes, embezzlement, insider trading, theft, and fraud, and reduce or eliminate the need for prisons. This is straight out of sci-fi, but he thinks it's possible with current technology or very soon technology. I don't know. Does this sound kind of post-apocalyptic or maybe a solution for prisons? Steve, what do you think?
So here's the thing. That all sounds very, very, very expensive.
Yes.
It is hard for me to imagine that it would ever get cheap enough that the government would do it en masse. So if it did exist, I would bet that it would fill like a niche category, probably for the ultra rich.
Yeah, that's true. Instead of going to prison, you can do this instead, but you got to pay for it.
Yeah. You know, or this plus parole, but this costs $700,000. You know, like, so until with current technology, it just sounds too expensive to be approachable en masse in the way that they are describing its use. Yes, it would be really cool for that, but not only that, there's a giant infrastructure needed to have those sort of facilities, people that can do that sort of thing in place all over the place.
Yeah, brain implants that will induce emotional states. Like, yeah, that sounds very intricate and dangerous nonetheless. But I mean, 100 years, of course, it'd be possible.
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean, here's the thing, though. The way that those sort of things take off, though, is either they find a entertainment market for it, which is a luxury item that the rich and mega rich are willing to pay on the regular, or military implication and get picked up in a government
for torture,
contract,
things like that.
And then that's when you get the development you need, the expertise you need, the ability to set up that network that you need.
Oh, can you imagine the porn and companion aspect of this, where you could feel emotions like love, and have the AI headsets like showing you someone you're falling in love with, or continuous orgasm in your brain for like an hour. Porn is what really develops everything in this technology wise in this world.
I mean, the way where my brain goes is like feeling and empathizing very deeply with my wife when I have to watch an implant of what it looks like to have me just sweatily leaning over top of her.
God.
Like, oh God, I'm so sorry, sweetie.
You've had to go through this.
That was just awful.
How do you deal with me? I'm so sorry.
It's like a bald gorilla. It's, oh God, why?
There's so much hair. Why? Oh my God. Yeah. So a lot of implications there.
The couple therapy implication are
fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. But that takes us on to our main segment with Cop and a Half.
Oh, yeah. Well, Devin Butler is a small kid with a big attitude who dreams of being a cop someday. He even earns himself a swirly from some bullies when he stands up to them while playing cops and robbers. On the way home from school, he spots a police chase, and him and his best friend go to check it out. He captures the license plate of a getaway car and writes it in his little notebook. We meet Nick McKenna, who's chasing two guys on foot in his car, refusing to get out because he hates to run. He knocks down one and takes out a neighborhood fence to get the other. He's been hot on the trail of a local gangster and drug mover. Devin gets a scolding from his grandma, but when she goes to work, he spots the getaway car and decides to follow it. The suspect that McKenna took got out, but the big boss thinks he talked, and he gets gruesomely drowned with chicken tied in his mouth.
Yeah.
Devin sees the whole thing and is suddenly the main witness in this investigation. McKenna and the police arrive. Devin agrees to help them, but he wants a little quid pro quo, as he puts it. He wants to be a cop. McKenna and Devin's grandma begrudgingly agree to let him do ride along for a day with McKenna. The day as a cop is a bit boring, but Devin spots what he thinks is a purse snatcher and runs after him. And there's a great chase where he steals a kid's skateboard. But it turns out that he was just trying to give his wife her purse because she forgot it before getting on the bus. Devin begrudgingly gives up the name that he heard the gangsters say, Bobo. So they got to try to find all the Bobos in the city. The first is a crazy artist who swings from a rope and paints with his body. The second is a small man who they walk up in the middle of a domestic dispute because he forgot their anniversary and his girlfriend is throwing his baseball cards out the window. Prize below, and they decide that's probably not the right Bobo either. But Devin really de-escalates the situation and impresses McKenna.
Mm-hmm.
McKenna drops off a very disappointed Devin, who has to turn in his badge and his cuffs. Devin goes and meets his friend Ray when they spot the same getaway car. Well, he goes up to investigate, but the two bullies are there, and he says, "No, don't break my grandma's car." And the bullies break the car, and the gangsters come out and beat them up. It's great. Devin goes home to call McKenna, but grandma informs him that the new counselor from school is there to talk to him. And it's the bad guy. He knows who Devin is and where he lives. Devin starts staying with McKenna for protection while the investigation continues. And we get a fun, odd couple scenario where Devin and McKenna step on each other's toes while living together. And Devin hates that he smokes and then pees on his feet.
That's really weird.
McKenna ditches Devin with a different officer, but the bad guy sets his goons to kill Devin. McKenna arrives just in time to drag him out from in front of a car. McKenna and Devin are on the case again, tracking down the final Bobo, who is a huge muscular man in a biker bar. They get into a bar fight. McKenna is getting his ass whooped, but Devin, with some quick thinking, uses the police siren to empty the bar. They chase Bobo on his motorcycle, but as the bridge is raising, Bobo makes the jump, and they go and almost make it, and then they stop at the last moment. Thank God, because they would have died. The next morning, Devin is missing. McKenna searches feverishly, but it turns out Devin just went for donuts, but McKenna blows up on him and says that he's not the boy's father, and this hurts Devin terribly, who runs away. Devin heads back to school where the bullies are waiting for him. He hits one in the balls and ducks the other, and then grabs them through a fence and cuffs them to it. He's the big hero, but then the bad guys are there for him. The other kids help him to hide, sort of Three Amigos style, causing distractions and misdirections, setting traps, and otherwise abusing the bad guys with a great Spartacus moment at the end. I'm Devin Butler. I'm Devin Butler.
I'm Devin Butler.
But as the bad guys go, Devin's walkie-talkie gives him away as he has hidden in the bad guy's car. They drag him in front of their boss, who locks him away. He's able to find a phone and call McKenna enough to explain that $100,000 isn't money. The kind of clue that they need. McKenna spots Bobo and follows him. And then supposedly, they don't show this, he overwhelms Bobo, takes his motorcycle and Bobo's clothes and drives in because McKenna is there in place of Bobo.
Yeah, they don't explain any of it, but it happened.
Nope. It happened, and you have to trust that it happened. McKenna it rescues Devin. They're running through a warehouse. They're getting shot at. McKenna gets shot, but him and Devin make a run and get on the motorcycle. The bad guys make chase in their cars on the docks. McKenna and Devin ditch the bike and instead option for a conveniently placed speedboat with keys in it. Devin drives as McKenna's been shot, and the big boss chases them in a boat. Two of the other bad guys grab another conveniently placed boat and also make chase. They hit some nasty wake, though, and one of them is flipped out of the driver while the other one is holding on to the front. And it's just a great shot with him holding onto the front of the boat and that face on camera they put on him. Just a great shot. The other bad guy, the main bad guy and his goon chase Kevin and McKenna through some tugboats. They end up in a dead end, but they spot two pipes, and McKenna tells Devin he's gonna run them right up and they'll jump out of the water. Devin and McKenna start singing as they push full throttle, running up the pipes and landing without a scratch. The bad guy says, "We're going to do that too," forces his goon to hit the throttle. They go forward and somehow end up on a completely different trajectory. They crash into, I guess, like a tanker of some sort, which rolls them into a building under a giant like spout that just has fish and shrimp guts come out of it.
For some reason.
The bad guys are covered in goo. Devin and McKenna laugh and laugh. And then we get a cut to the near future, where McKenna and Devin are taking Grandma for a rowboat ride. Devin has matching cowboy boots with McKenna, and they all live happily ever after.
Oh.
And that is Cop and a Half.
That is Cop and a Half.
So, Jeremy, had you seen this movie before?
I don't think I had. I mean, it's so similar to so many other 90s movies that you like think you might have seen it, but I don't think I've seen this movie.
It's the poor man's Kindergarten Cop.
Pretty much, which will come into play later on in our discussion. But man, I thought it was cute. It was fun in that very 90s way, and it had a lot of great 90s music, which I'm sure you'll talk about too. But it was, and that little kid was just adorable. And I looked him up, and it's like he hasn't been in anything else really. This was kind of his claim to fame, was this movie. Yeah,
he did one or two other notable things sort of in there, but that was it.
Yeah, Cop and a Half, man. Norman Golden the second, I think his name is.
Yeah,
he's adorable and snarky and cute. And even though like Burt Reynolds is known for being really hard to work with on set, I think his chemistry with the little kid was fantastic. I think they was like, you really believed it. Like I didn't believe him. I believed him not liking anybody else on set, but he seemed to really like that kid. And I liked that a lot. And it was just a cute, harmless movie. Not great. I don't know. That's my good things I want to say about it. But before I get my worst things,
those all qualify as good things. You're right.
What are the good things you liked about it?
I thought there was some genuinely good acting. I agree. Norman D. Golden II as Devin was great and had some really good natural comedic instinct. There were some times where it was clear that he was coached hard on how to say something or how to deliver something, but the ones where it was natural and you can tell it's just the way he did it were absolutely great.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely great. Just him being sassy. I actually wrote down a couple of favorite lines when the bullies are about to, he calls them pus heads, and they're about to put him in the toilet. And as they flip him upside down, they get that camera looking up at him. I meant it in the nicest way. When he taunts the bully, so throwing your jacket on the ground makes you smarter. Just great. Just
the bully gets angry, throws his jacket at the ground, and he says that. Yeah, it's like, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
I cited a best lines thing, so I put in my favorite line from Burt Reynolds was when he's putting Devin to sleep by reading him a newspaper article about a baseball player getting injured, and then he looks away from the paper and says, "Actually, doctors don't have much hope for him, and they're going to cut off his testicles." It's like, that was actually really funny.
To like check to make sure the kid was asleep.
Yeah, and he's like, "Yep, he's asleep." You didn't hear that.
And then some really higher caliber. You got Holland Taylor in there, who played Captain Rubio, his boss.
Oh yeah, she's great.
McKenna's boss. She's a great actress has had a mile-long career, and she's married to Sarah Paulson.
Oh, that's right.
Who's like 25 years her junior or something nuts.
Oh, yeah. Famous lesbian.
And then all of the side gangsters, Frank Severo, Mark McCulley, and Tom McClyster, are all good working actors, all of which also have IMDb's a mile long.
And I even recognize the main guy, Ray Sharkey, who played a lot of stuff before this, but apparently this is his last movie. He died at 40.
He died 2 or 3 months after this movie came out. This came out in April and he died in June, I think.
Which is weird because my uncle's name is Ray and he named his dog Sharky, which I thought he probably has no idea this actor exists, but that's really strange.
Either that or he's secretly named all of his animals over the years after different raises.
Raises.
So like Charles.
Yeah.
You know,
other Rays.
Different other Rays.
Whichever ones there are.
Ruby Dee, his grandma, was like a great, credible actor.
I'd heard that name before.
Yeah, she's been in a ton of stuff and really classed it up. So I think the acting really is something to say. Surprisingly, in this movie, was like could have been way worse.
Oh yeah, it could have been. It wasn't.
Could have been way worse off.
With a kind of cheesy script, they just somehow sold it pretty well.
And then I was like, man, just like a lot of the bad movies we watched, this had kind of better music than the movie deserved. It was like kind of perfectly scored and clearly personally done by somebody. And I looked and it's Alan Silvestri.
It was huge.
Who, if you don't know him, I literally just started writing the biggest things down and the list got crazy. Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, Ready Player One, Back to the Future, Captain America, Night at the Museum, Polar Express, Lilo and Stitch, Castaway, Contact, Forrest Gump, Grumpy Old Men, Super Mario Bros. With Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, The Bodyguard, Predator 2, Predator, The Abyss, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Flight of the Navigator, Clan of the Cave Bear, and Summer Rental with John Candy.
Basically, like every time John Williams wasn't available for Spielberg, he would do a movie.
Alan Silvestri was the next guy.
And like Robert Zemeckis, like just, you know.
And somehow he did music for Cop and a Half, everyone. So you really get to enjoy it. It really is good.
A lot of that 90s saxophone in there too, which is great.
And then this was directed by the Fonz himself, Henry Winkler.
Yeah, it's so weird.
And this was his second and last motion picture that he directed.
Just too bad.
So all of those things really added credibility and kind of we ended with a better movie than this deserved to be. And then I thought, once again, Sharky, I agree. The over-the-top villain was balanced out by the fact that at the beginning, they show that he is ruthless. Like he murders this guy hard.
Yeah.
And like in a gruesome, terrible way, nightmarish way. And so, yes, he sings like, you know, doo-wop classics and stuff and styles himself in weird 50s and 60s attire. But you know that he's just murderous.
That's the one thing that didn't work for me is that like they have him sing these doo-wop songs, but he sounds really good. And so the goons like making fun of it or pretending like they hate listening to him sing. I'm like, no, he's a really good singer. He sounds just like the originals. He's a really good singer. So that's
you're right. If anything, he needed to be worse.
Yeah. I was like, no, yeah, you should be happy your boss sings that well. You don't have to make anything up.
Your boss could be awful.
But I will say some things that took away from me was that the dialogue was really cheesy and corny at a lot of the times. And it is more of a kid's movie, family movie. So I get it, but it's like, oh, okay. There was very few moments where I was actually laughing out loud, but there's a few. So I was like, that's redeemable. The goons were kind of super generic, but that was kind of on par for the 90s. But also I thought like, unlike something like Home Alone, where there's a kid doing against big adult villains, I feel like there wasn't a lot of characterization for the villains and for a lot of the other characters. They're all kind of one-dimensional besides the kid and Burt Reynolds a little bit. So it's like, all those things kind of made it just not a great movie, but it was fun. It was cute. I don't know. Any bad things you had about it, or just kind of you really enjoyed it?
I mean, it's very 90s. Like it just bleeds 90s and everything. But I like that it kind of, in some ways, it also, not say challenge some social issues, but think like the main character here was like a black lower middle class kid.
Yeah. In the early 90s,
whose
too.
grandma works, and there's no real mention of his parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like how many times was that the hero of the story in the 90s?
He was always some rich white kid, basically.
Right. So I just thought, you know, in that regard, it was kind of, you know, looking back now, you're like, all right, it kind of was one of a kind.
Yeah.
In that regard.
And that's some lucky casting that made that happen.
Yeah, lucky casting. The child acting was very good and some genuinely funny stuff.
So
to the point where I still was chuckling.
A lot of trivia for this will make sense of what kind of happened behind the scenes of this. The film was originally proposed as a sequel for Kindergarten Cop. So they were going to adapt this script to be a sequel to Kindergarten Cop, but luckily that didn't happen. Despite the movie's generally negative reception, Roger Ebert actually gave it a thumbs up, but his colleague Gene Siskel, on the other hand, named it the worst movie of 1993, which I think is pretty harsh. There's got to be worse ones. This is, as you said, the second and final film written or directed by Henry Winkler. And Burt Reynolds has said he mainly did the film to have a movie that his son Quentin could see with him in it, because most of his movies are very violent. And also his son Quentin does a cameo as the kid that he steals the skateboard from. That's his son in the movie.
Aw, okay.
Macaulay Culkin was originally cast as Devin Butler. So they did have a white kid in there originally, but he dropped out. And so rewrites were made to make this, I think, a better movie, like you said. Kurt Russell and Jim Belushi both turned down the role of Detective Nick McKenna, which they had to make a secret because when Burt Reynolds notoriously doesn't like to know that he was the second fiddle. Like he wants to think that he was the first choice for everything. So they actually had to hide that fact from him for many years, that he was the third choice down the line. And Burt Reynolds made the production an unpleasant experience for everyone, with the lone exception of his co-star, Norman Golden II. He apparently was very nice to him, but just everyone else could not stand Burt Reynolds. He was very unhappy that Henry Winkler was directing and continually chided Henry Winkler in front of the cast and crew. And Henry was making every effort to direct the movie without upsetting Burt, yet it didn't seem to matter. They said that one of the producers, Paul Maslansky, was disappointed that they cast Reynolds, and he frequently vented his frustrations and regret at the way Burt conducted himself on location. And according to one of the producers, Malansky repeatedly relayed, "I just wanted to have fun making this movie, but it's impossible with Burt Reynolds." And apparently he said, "If I'm making this movie, we're doing it in Florida because that's where my summer house is, and I want to film this in Florida where I live." And so they had to move all the production to Florida. That's where it was filmed, because he actually went to Florida State University too. And he wears a jersey from that apparently at one point in the movie, which I had no idea he was sort of a Florida guy. But
he has a mug somewhere too that had Seminole on it.
Yeah,
made a mental note of it.
Exactly. So it was very Florida, and that's why I think I commented particularly. Everyone is sweating so much in this movie, like makeup department probably had hell. And like every time Burt Reynolds was in this shot, you could see sweat stains on his chest in an odd formation, like he's got so much sweat stains. And the little kid that was sweating the whole time is like, these poor people just dying in Florida heat. Not a good place to film movies. It's
good thing Macaulay Culkin dropped out.
Yeah,
he would have been so
it.
sweaty.
He would have passed out. So that was Cop and a Half.
Cop and a Half. All right. Well, this week I've got a game. And this one is specifically pandering to our UK listeners.
Oh.
There are a lot of nicknames for police in the U.S. Police, cops, Popo, 5-0, Piggies, what have you. But in the UK, they choose much more colorful language for slang. So I've got a game where I've got some UK slang terms for police officers and some just for normal everyday things. And you have to tell me which is a police officer and which is just a normal slang.
I like it.
All right. Are you ready?
Let's
for a
do
game
it.
that I didn't come up with a good name for?
Yes.
I'm going to call it Squeal, Piggy, Squeal.
There you go.
All right. So there's 7 in total. Right. A Kent face.
That's weird enough that I'm saying, yes, that's a name for a police officer.
I'm sorry, it's not.
Oh.
That's incorrect. It's commonly used in Scotland, where a person has seen someone that they know, such as, I saw a few Kent faces in the library.
They do say, do you ken, which means do you know? So I it's from Outlander. I always hear that all the time. So I should have known that one. Okay.
There we go. All right. Roz.
How do you spell it?
Rozz.
Yeah, it's like the fuzz. I'll say like the Roz. Sure. That's a police officer.
It is. That's correct. Rosin is an abbreviation for report on summons.
Oh, man, that's so British and boring.
I know,
No
right?
offense.
Yeah, I'm sure none taken. Good thing I'm pandering right now. All right. A gobby.
Oh, that just. I'm going to say no.
That is correct. It is not. It's used to describe someone who talks a lot and has a lot of opinions, but not in a great way.
Oh, that's why they shove that in your gob. I always hear that kind of thing, like it's your mouth. Yeah, okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. A plotter.
Yeah, that sounds like they're marching to you. They're plotting with their boots. Yeah, I'll say that's a cop name.
That's correct. I like that you got there, but for not the right reason at all. Apparently, there is a popular book series called Naughty. It's a children's book series that has a policeman named Mr. Plod in it.
Oh.
And so Plotters comes from Naughty, this very popular book series.
Interesting. I wonder if Mr.
So
Plod though, is a
plotters.
play off of him plodding around. I don't know.
Maybe. That's another one right.
Nice.
All right. Queen Mum.
I will say the Queen's Guard, kind of going from there. So like the police officers. Yeah, I'll say it's a nickname for him.
That is incorrect.
Oh.
It's Cockney rhyming slang for your bum. The Queen Mum.
Put that up your Queen Mum and squat on it.
That's right. You nailed it. All right. We have 2 left.
Okay.
All right. Blue bottle.
I bet that's rhyming slang too. Blue bottle. Get your fottle. That's not a word. Blue bottle. Yeah, well, like the sirens going off, like a blue bottle. Yeah, cops.
Okay, yeah, you're right. It is.
Yeah.
And apparently it's because there were popular blue bottles at the time that this slang became prevalent, and they were very similar to the color of police uniforms.
Oh, okay. So not for the right reasons, but I was right.
Not for the right reasons, but you got there.
You
did that earlier too, just brilliant. All right. There is 1 left.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Numpty.
Numpty, like Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Numpty like Humpty Dumpty.
So like, all the king's men. Yeah, I'll say cop.
That is incorrect. It's someone who does or says something inappropriate or kind of silly. So you might hear someone say, "You numpty, you've got your t-shirt on backwards."
But why is it like Humpty Dumpty? Like they're just kind of falling apart?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I didn't make it up. I just wrote it down.
UK listeners, write in and tell us why.
In total, you got 4 out of 7 correct.
Hey.
Our
That's a
UK
D.
listeners should be proud. That's a D, and we're very proud of you for it.
I appreciate
Here's
it.
your diploma.
That's all I need.
That's right. But I guess that takes us into some radical recommend.
Yes, it does.
Recommend.
If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up.
What do you recommend I do?
I recommend Pleasant.
All right, for this radical recommends, I might have recommended this years ago, but I had started the show Lucifer a long time ago when it was just gotten to Netflix, I think. And it was originally on Fox, but I didn't see it until it got on Netflix and they picked it up for new seasons. So I'd watched like the first 3 seasons and then just kind of fell off. And I was actually starting to rewatch it with my wife. But she didn't really get into it. She wasn't having a fun time. But I just started finishing it. I'm almost on the last season now. And the new Netflix seasons are great because it was originally a Neil Gaiman comic for DC about Lucifer going to Los Angeles and becoming a working with a police detective. It's actually Lucifer. And the fun catch is that he never lies. And everyone asks him who he is. He's like, oh, I'm Lucifer. I'm the devil. And they're like, oh, funny. But then so he just goes and solves mysteries with her. And his superpower is that he can look into any human's eyes and ask them what is it they truly desire. And they're compelled to tell him. And so he can't ask them like, did you kill this person? He's asked them what their desires are. So they kind of figure out from there who's done what. But they, throughout the series, start incorporating more of the celestial elements like other angels, and they come down and cause havoc and stuff, demons that are causing trouble. And Eve from Adam and Eve comes and arrives. And so as it gets further along, it gets more and more supernatural. From the early episodes are more procedural cop show, like you'd see with any other procedural cop show. And so now it's gotten a lot of fun. It's silly at times, but other times there's like a musical episode. There's some animated stuff in there. It gets a little wacky, but it's also dark and sexy. There's always a lot of dancing and sex scenes and stuff like that. And not a lot of nudity, but there's like a lot of sex and stuff. But either way, it's gotten better with Netflix. So I'm recommending it for those who want to give it a second look on Netflix. It is Neil Gaiman based. So it actually had a crossover with Legends of Tomorrow once, who had Constantine in it. So Constantine goes to hell in an episode of that show, and he sees this Lucifer as this actor there in hell. So it is part of the DC universe technically. But either way, yeah, it's a recommendation. Have you ever seen
everyone
episode?
got paid. That's the important part. No, but I've certainly seen enough clips and references on things like Reddit. I just have never given it a chance, admittedly.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge procedural cop show kind of guy, but because it had that supernatural element in there, I kind of enjoy it. And the lead actor is a British guy who's like 6'5" and handsome and smarmy and talented. And so he can really pull off being the charming devil he's supposed to be. And just a lot of other good actors that pop in and out of the show too. A lot of guest parts, people playing different angels, and people that come in there you'll recognize. So it's a good watch. I'd check it out. But that brings us to some trailer reviews.
All right. This week, the trailer I picked is for the new upcoming anticipated Tom Hanks and Robin Wright film Here, which seems to be, I'm not going to say an experimental film, but certainly an interesting premise in that the entire thing is going to be done through a single camera shot. I'll put that in quotation marks.
Single camera setup. Yeah. Single
camera setup, telling different stories, apparently as far back as like the Stone Age, maybe, though we probably will. Well, I bet you we'll get one montage at the beginning, right, where we see most of the stuff from the trailer, and then it'll be the actual movie about a man played by Tom Hanks who meets a girl and brings her home to meet his parents. They apparently then inherit the house, move in, raise their own family, get old, and we get to see it all through the setting of this front living room in a home in America. And there's going to be some very interesting de-aging. It actually looks pretty darn good.
They're getting good
in the trailer. There was that one with Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro relatively recent, The Irishman, terrible. That was awful.
Also, that movie was boring as fuck.
Oh, it was so just distracting. All the de-aging. So I hope this doesn't fall into that. But this looks really interesting and like something that I would want to see just to see how they do it.
And I also will say that when de-aging also works these days is when you have an actor who's can act youthful. And so like we had Robert Downey Jr. do some scenes where he was de-aged in the Marvel movies, and it works because that actor, he can act very youthful. And so even when he's pretending to be younger, his body movements, his voice can sound young. I think Tom Hanks does that really well too. Robert De Niro could not do that. He sounded old since 20 years ago.
Yeah. He just doesn't have the energy for it. I get it.
And I think Robin Wright's good for that too, because she's acted very refined and elegant and kind of like an older woman since she was in her 20s.
Since The Princess Bride.
Yeah. So she seems the same younger as she would now, like Forrest Gump. And I'm just remembering now that they're being reunited from Forrest Gump, which is pretty cool. Her and Tom Hanks. I saw it has what's his face who plays Vision in it as their dad.
Oh, Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany, yeah. He's playing their father. So they're showing some of that from like World War II or maybe it's Vietnam kind of era stuff. But it's really cool that the de-aging looks decent enough where they can actually do something like this, because it wouldn't be possible 20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, not with this amount of success.
Yeah.
You'd have to do different actors playing different age ranges and that kind of old school stuff. It would get confusing. So if they pull it off, I think it'll be a magnificent piece and something to behold. I'm more interested to see if they can do it more than anything.
And it's Robert Zemeckis who did Back to the Future and all these different things. He's a great director, but also like, are they gonna be able to keep us interested in one camera shot set up for 2 hours? Like, that's the interesting part too. Like, will we care long enough? Because it's just sitting there, you know, no zoom ins, nothing. So yeah, it's interesting. Glad you picked it.
So I'm going to give this one. Raul Julia goes and makes himself a drink and sits in his favorite armchair and takes a big sip and goes, that tastes a little funny. And he's been drugged and he blacks out. And the next thing we get, the next camera shot we get is from Raul Julia's eyes, that shot where they open up. It's like, and Raul realizes that his head is strapped into some sort of contraption and he can't move his head. And in front of him, there's a crude frame made of old cereal boxes taped together, making a box. And he can't look away. He can't move from this one spot. And Gary Busey walks into view and he's like, this is the story of our lives, Raul.
I'm going to show you all of it.
And then the lights go out. That's it. That's the whole thing.
That's all that. I'm going to give this trailer. Raul Julia is, cleaning up the house as usual. And he finds this space age looking memory stick. It's really weird. So he puts it in his laptop, his Windows 95 laptop, and he's able to push play on this video on there.
HDR is there.
Yeah. And he sees this video playing in front of him of their house, but it's the same area, but from the beginning of time. And this dinosaur slowly evolves and turns into Gary Busey. And then it slowly evolves into where he is now. And he realizes that Gary Busey is primordial and he's been here since the beginning of time in the same location.
He's like Tom Bombadil.
Yes, exactly. He's part of nature itself. Yeah, he's been there the whole time.
I would watch that Lord of the Rings adventure.
Gary Busey as Tom Bombadil.
Is a primordial.
Hey guys,
he is one of the Maiar.
Yes.
He's one of the blue wizards we don't fucking talk about.
That's some deep cuts. I appreciate it.
Dude, I know some stuff.
Yeah, man. Maybe we will get to see
YouTube videos a lot.
And Rings of Power. Maybe they'll do it. Who knows?
That's right.
It's the end of our episode this time, but next time, join us because in honor of the release of Harold and the Purple Crayon, we're going to discuss another children's classic where imagination comes to life, realities converge, and one human boy can change everything. And we are, of course, talking about Never Ending Story 3, everyone's favorite. That's right. It's the rule of 3 once again.
Rule of 3.
Yeah, baby.
Well, come on back for that. We'll keep coming back and being your nerdy hosts if you keep coming back and being our nerdy audience. Thanks again, Internet.
Stay nerdy, my friends.
Thanks for listening to A Play on Nerds. Feel free to email feedback at aplayonnerds.com with all your questions or comments.
Shoot us a message on Facebook or Twitter and earn yourself a sweet shout out on the show.
Review us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts so even more nerds can find us. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, we aren't picky.
Check out our entire back catalog and other offerings at aplayonnerds.com.
And how?